mastermind or pre-mastermind is titled Renovate Your Body. Why is that? Because I just bought a little old house and am renovating it and realized how many parallels we have in renovating our house and renovating our body when we want to rejuvenate, give us a fresh start, get rid of rotting parts and worn out, tattered parts, and rebuild a body for ourselves that is feeling good, strong, flexible, and joyful to live in, right? A body that just is your joy, not your burden. All right, a little bit about me. I'm Professor Johanna Sophia of Johanna's Raw Foods and Coaching and of the Rawsome Life Project. And we will hear more about that next calendar year in 2025. Right now, I am renovating my body as I have renovated my house. It's not done yet, so my body still has to wait, which is kind of sad, right? You can't really let your body wait until the house is renovated. It should be the other way around. I should have done more to renovate my body before doing the work on the house. Of course, I'm not doing all the work on the house, and that is also a parallel. A little bit to my background. I am, of course, a professor not of nutrition. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I am a professor of writing, directing, producing film, and I am a certified Waldorf teacher. So my expertise in terms of my certifications is in education and learning. So maybe that translates to loving to learn. I've always loved to learn. So my research in terms of what really is life on planet Earth, what really is this body that we have, that we inhabit, what really is it that we need to have the best possible life experience and the best possible body to have that life experience. And here we have a person joining us. Welcome, Mary. I am in the introduction and have explained that we have seen only the 22nd announced on the registration, right? And I just post that declaration that I'm doing the mastermind on the 22nd, wanted to do this preliminary issue in which I explain what this idea of renovation is all about. So a little bit more to my background. I grew up with a very weak and flawed body. The worst in sports, with a hole in my heart and a crooked back and all kinds of issues, tissue that wasn't connected to the muscle tissue properly. So I grew up with a very flawed, renovation needing body. But it took a long time to really figure out what this body needs to get to its maximum ability. And of course, everybody has a different level of a maximum ability. So with all these flaws and weaknesses, I did learn that purpose is number one. And even though in my renovations, that is not necessarily the number one, why do you buy a house? Well, you could start it that way as well. Why do you buy a house or an apartment or a condo or a car for that matter? It has a purpose so that you can reside What does it need? And let me go into those details a little bit later. A couple of more things to my background, how I got to Johanna's Raw Foods and the Rawsome Life Project, and to this understanding of how biology works on planet Earth. Not just from learning, but from experiencing real adversary events. 20 years ago, and some of you may know this story, now 21 years ago to be exact, I had a mini stroke, or people tell me it was a real stroke. Never mind. I recovered very well from it. That's why I don't call it such a big event. But it was a drastic wake-up call. I was sitting just as I'm sitting here at a table. Actually, here I'm sitting at a countertop. And I was very stressed out, hadn't slept, had hardly eaten, was in a very difficult, abusive relationship. The highly intelligent man who was very what's the word? What have I used to describe him? Conflicted, deeply conflicted. And of course, in a profession that made that conflict worse and worse because he was an asset as a secret agent. So, and of course, I was not supposed to really know that either, but people like myself get to know those things. I've met several in the meantime. Yeah, so that is, of course, a life of lies, a life of duality, but not in a good way duality, of getting to a point where you don't know what is reality and what is your make-believe reality, because that is, of course, the job of an agent who gets into other countries, other people's secrets, pretending to be what they are not. So in this difficult relationship, which was an interesting learning experience for myself, and I love learning and understanding all these layers and layers of the human experience in this world and in this era where so many more of us are waking up to what really happens. And the same then became true for our human biology. I was already eating organic and eating mostly plant-based, but I hadn't really studied what the building blocks are for the best biology of our body and for nature and how it works. So anyway, I was sitting at a table and my hand flew up into the air like that. And I was holding onto the table with the other hand, but my body weight fell backwards and I fell to the floor with the chair and could no longer move. My mouth was wide open and I could not shut it. Actually, a scream had come out of my mouth. And sorry, that was just a message coming in. I was then laying on the floor for quite a while, realizing that I was fully conscious, but that I could not move, could not have access to this body of mine. So I also had an outer body experience, I suppose people would call that. And I was commanding myself to get back into that body and get back in there and do what it needed so that this would never happen again. My children were still young, they were in middle school, and I needed to be there for them, obviously. So that's where I realized I have to do whatever is necessary for this body to make it the best it can possibly be, to make it functioning so that it will never go on strike on me again. And we all know that when we are very, very stressed, our body does all sorts of things. We get back pain, we get headaches, we get diarrhea, we get stomach aches, we get extraordinary tiredness, chronic fatigue, we called it at one point. Now it's got all kinds of other names. But that happens when we do not take care of what it really needs. So for me, that was my biggest wake-up calls. There were others. There were little steps and understandings, but let's just take that as my wake-up call. Ask yourself whether you have ever had such a wake-up call, and maybe you did not listen, maybe you did not know where to go. I was lucky that at that time I already knew that the best nourishment for the human body and for any life on planet Earth is what I'm going to talk about. So back to the house. So we are acquiring a house, whether we're renting or buying. You know, buying is just a little more involved because we have to do all the right things. Why do we buy a house? What is necessary? What needs to function in that house, right? Why do we have a house? We need a roof over our head. What else do we need? We need heat. Why do we need the roof? To protect us from the weather, to protect us from, at some point, wild animals, creatures of all kinds, even mice, if you will, right? I'm laughing because I'm dealing with mice this summer where I was staying. I'm staying not in my house right now. I'm staying at a friend's. My house is still not finished being renovated. So we need a roof. We need heat to keep our body in a temperature that's livable for humans. What else do we need in the house? We need windows. We need to let in air. We need to let old air out. We need sunshine to come into the windows or be available in the yard if there's a yard. So we need an outdoor environment around our dwelling as well. We need, in today's world, electricity. And of course, when we go to our body, we see that electricity is very, very much part of the functioning of the human body as well. We need water. We need fluids of all kinds, right? Water, of course, for the human body and water for the house. We need to have garbage removal. Now, I want you to think of all the equivalents for your body that I'm mentioning here. And then we need regular cleaning still. Even though we put all these things in place, we need regular cleaning. What happens if we don't? The dust piles up, the dirt, keratin piles up, leftovers pile up, garbage starts to stink, etc., etc. So with that house or home comes the responsibility of regular cleaning as well. All right, let's translate that to our body. I'm trying to force myself to just stick with this example. I'm so good at relating to the entire world and all of life on planet Earth, but let's just stick to the the symbol or the example of a house being renovated. So we're moving into this body. We're born, we're getting the first nourishment, we're taking the first breath, of course, comes before the nourishment. We're eliminating for the first time, even before we get nourishment from our mother's breast. So there's the garbage removal. Then we get covered so that we can slowly learn to get out of the womb, which of course is a very close environment, into the outside environment. So we get covered, we get hugged, we get held, we get fed, and we get cleaned. How does electricity come in? Electricity comes in because the vibrations, the electricity that each of our bodies creates, that each living thing creates, each tree, each flower, each cabbage, each animal, everything has an electromagnetic field, an electricity, right? We need this electricity, and as we are born, we need the electricity from other human beings, preferably our mother and father, to learn how to have a healthy vibe, a healthy electricity production. Because of course, this body also produces its own electromagnetic field. We can measure it these days. All right, we need garbage removal. Not just do we need to eliminate, we need to remove the garbage out of our house, right? Out of our environment, or to the yard where it can become fertilizer for the next forms of life or other forms of life. So that our excrement naturally would be the fertilizer for the plants that then provide our food again. That is the natural cycle. A soil that doesn't have animal excrement in it, whether it's birds or deer or groundhogs, or also the millions and trillions of tiny little entities that live in healthy soil. All the little worms and beetles and tiny little critters that you can only see under the microscope, and bacteria, all of it excretes, and that excrement produces life, providing minerals and nutrients for the next species that needs to grow there. So garbage removal can also be into that cycle again of life that helps us remain healthy. So then the house, what nutrients does the house need? Does the house need nutrients? Well, I would say the house needs beautification. You see behind me in Sylvia's house, there are lots of framed paintings and things on the wall. There are flowers next to me on the desk here, on the table. There are lots of plants in the house. There is a composition of how the house is arranged. All of that provides a human home as opposed to a beaver home or a termite hill, right? So each species also requires that creation of the environment for the species. And humans being creative, I always maintain that creativity is what distinguishes us from the animal kingdom. So we want to create an environment. We want to look at something and rejoice in the beauty of it, or be triggered to be thinking about something, or we want to have windows where we see the greenery outside. You can't, well, you can see it maybe a little bit, but it's too bright out. The sun is still shining. So now we have the house, and it has been worn out, right? The house I bought is 100 years old, and a little over 100 years old, and it has been worn out, and I am renovating. In fact, I took out the laminate floors because I discovered that underneath was beautiful, healthy redwood floor, red oak. So the same can be true for your body. You may have spent the last 10 years eating junk food, drinking alcohol, eating too much sugar, exposing yourself to chemicals in your makeup and your body products or sunscreens, etc., all of which can put layers and layers of laminate, plastic on the inside of your digestive tract, on the inside of your arteries, and of course on your skin and on all your tissues. So to remove that plaque, that chemical layer that you may be wearing on the inside and on the outside, it takes that renovation. It takes that removal. Unfortunately, we have to do the work with our hands, and of course we hire contractors who are experts in these crafts to remove things in a house and to reinstall the electricity and to reinstall the plumbing and to sand down the floors, etc. And it takes a lot of money and work and time to renovate an old house. The irony here is not so for our body. For our body does most of the work for us if we give it the right nutrients, relaxation, and environment. That is the amazing part. And when I prepared this whole mastermind on renovation, that struck me as being the most amazing thing. It is actually faster to renovate our body than it is to renovate a house. Because what do we need? We need to cleanse. We don't need to go in there with brushes and roam around and clean and sweep and vacuum and sand down, etc. The body does it all by itself if we give it the nutrients to do so. For example, if we spend 7 days on or even just 5 days on a juice or smoothie cleanse, the body will take down the plaque on the inside of the arteries. The lymph system will cleanse all the tissues. The enemas go, not enema, the water in your feet, I'm blanking on the word, will come back up and be eliminated. Your body will do the work because it is actually a self-healing machine, contrary to the house. The house is not a self-healing machine. We've got to do the work. The body, on the other hand, does it if you just give it a little bit of help. What else does it need? It needs the nutrients. Now, of course, I will tell you exactly what the best nutrients are. And when you think about it, I think you can almost get there by yourself too. Um, it also needs extra oxygen. So breathing, deep breathing is very important. Exposure to the outdoors, sunshine, vitamin D3 production. And of course, in a house, on the other hand, we can produce electricity now by putting a solar system on the roof, and we literally absorb and store the sunshine and use it for our electricity. Now, our body somehow does the same, but our body, just like the solar system, also needs repeated exposure to the sun to keep that process going. So, there's another beautiful parallel. If you do not see the sun in months in a row, or cover your face with hats and your body with sunscreen, you will be deprived of that healing element, and you will be terribly deprived of D3. And we know that the Western world is terribly deficient in vitamin D3. So why is that important? Because it leads to all kinds of other inabilities of the body to heal itself. When we don't have sunshine, we don't have oxygen, we don't have enough fluid, good water. Of course, you know, normally I drink out of my high stem glasses. Here I just have um, a high cup, and almost like a pitcher, and I've got spring water in there, and that's what I drink. And it is delicious. So we need the water, we need the nutrients, we need the sunshine, we need the oxygen, and we need rest. Not just rest as in good sleep, but we also need relaxation, deep letting go, so the body can do the work. Because when we're tight and the adrenaline is rushing and we're holding on, we cannot let the body do the work, or the body cannot do the work against your stress and tightness. So therefore, in order to allow the body to do the cleansing, and the last step I'm going to talk about last, building. So if you do not have the adequate relaxation, whether you do meditate, whether you do deep relaxation, whether you do enough of the breathing together with letting go, whether you walk in the woods and hug trees, now we actually know that there's a physical proof of taking on some of that tree energy into your body when under a tree or touching a tree, you know, which is hugging a tree is. So that deep relaxation is just as important as is the nutrient, because the nutrient will not get absorbed if you're all tense inside and if you're all holding your breath because you're so stressed and uptight. And of course, when we're in a situation like in a house renovation, we tend to be stressed because everything takes so much longer than you planned for. I can tell you that story. So that we tend to forget our body when we're in such a situation, right? And do not allow it to get the relaxation it needs to rebuild itself. So the last thing of the cleansing, the breathing, the nourishing, the relaxing and resting is the building. And that's where the real renovation in the body happens, right? Of course, just as I am rebuilding my floors, repainting the walls, redoing some of the electricity, redoing some of the plumbing, adding extra items in the bathroom and the kitchen. That's where the rebuilding of our body comes in. So when we want to rebuild extra muscle tissue because we want to be stronger, when we want to rebuild better eyesight so that we don't have to wear glasses, I do. I know that I can do this, but you have to take the time and actually do it. Then what happens? We put the nutrients, the relaxation and everything in there and the beautiful environment. Then we begin to build, because that's when the body is able to build new cell tissue faster and better. Of course, all of life constantly rebuilds itself. That's what I was trying not to say earlier, because that's of course the basis of all of life, is that it constantly renews itself. Cell tissue has to replicate all the time for anything to remain alive, whether it is a fruit fly or whether it is an elephant, everything alive, or a tree or a forget-me-not or a bacterium. All of it constantly needs to renew itself. Without cell replication, there is no life. So how can we get the body to renew itself? Of course, life does have a life cycle, and I cannot get back to baby smooth skin, right? I have all these little wrinkles here because I am 71 years old, and that shows, and that's okay. But these 71 years old can be used for all that life experience that I can now apply that I didn't have before, that I can now apply into what? So I want to rebuild the tissues as best I can, including the wrinkles and the defects that may not be repairable, right? If, for example, the father of my children has the tip of one of his fingers missing, that will not regrow. But the rest of the body can find ways to work around that missing part. I don't have a muscle tissue on my right shoulder here. It's extremely bony. When you look at it, it's just like, what is that? Why is that so bony? And however much I train, it's not possible to put a muscle there because I was born without it. So there are defects that we all have that we work around and make everything else so good that it covers that missing part, that it gets around there. Like with the hole in my heart, it's just fine. I just need to do extra work. I need to go extra running and walking and working out and powerlifting to make up for that weakness so that it doesn't become an impediment. All right, so we build cell tissue with the right nutrients, and we can also only do all of that when we have what? Because then you ask, why? Why should I do all this? Why shouldn't I just pop my 10, 15 pills? You know, we now know at my age, most Americans are on at least 7 pills. At least. I'm on none. 0. Zilch. So why is then the big question? And that's where purpose becomes the driver. You have to have purpose. And I often say to my clients, even if you just have, not just, even if your purpose is to show the world that you can be fit and fabulous in your 70s, 80s, 90s, that's purpose enough. but you have to really want it. And of course, if you have grandchildren, if you have relatives, if you have projects, if you have a book to write. Oh, I came across this 86-year-old lady. She moved into a senior tiny house community where everybody has creative projects and where she started a writers club. And they're all writing, they're not all, but many people who want to write their memoirs and write their experiences and teach kids if the kids want to come. That's purpose. And of course, some of us still have big projects. What's your project? What's your purpose? I was just on the phone last Sunday with a dear girlfriend of mine who is raising and homeschooling her 3 grandchildren. And they're fabulous. So she became the teacher and wise educator guide to her grandchildren so that they can have a very special start on life. That's purpose. So all of this renovation only makes sense if there's purpose. And unfortunately, I have never seen anything as lacking purpose as some of the American homes I've seen. I've lived in Germany, in Norway, in Scotland, in France, in Zimbabwe, in Namibia, in Romania, well, I've visited many other countries, but I have not lived there for a longer period of time. Oh, Jamaica, I worked also. And everywhere, people seem to have more purpose than right here. So ask yourself, what is your purpose? If you don't have purpose, you won't do the cleansing. You won't even clean your house. I've seen terrible American homes. Terribly, terribly sad. Where every African home, as poor as somebody could be, and it could be a kraal and a mud hut, is beautifully arranged, ordained with designs, and kept clean and orderly. So that's what we also need to do. When we renovate our house and renovate our body, we need to create order and cleanliness. All right. Now, those who are just listening in on this when it's on my YouTube channel, I am currently offering 4-week intensives. If you do have a severe issue like my stroke was, if you do have arthritis or diabetes or you name it, chronic diseases, allergies, asthma, etc., we can, edema, that's the word I was looking for earlier, not enema, edema. Okay, so edema is water in your extremities, especially in your feet and lower legs. But it can also be an edema in your lungs. Water in your lungs is pretty dangerous, or in your hands or joints altogether, right? We just call it by different names than rheumatoid arthritis, etc. So if you need to get out of those kind of predicaments that your lifestyle has put you in, let's face it, but you can get out of there faster than you can renovate a house, then I offer for you 4-week intensives where I'm on the phone with you or in a Zoom call like this one with you every day. And there is a step-by-step cleansing and building process that we follow to get you out of that predicament and get you into a lifestyle that actually supports a healthy body. I've done it many times with varying conditions for people, or rather, I have taught people many times how to do it because it's you yourself, of course, who self heals. I don't heal you, you heal yourself. Very important. So there's the intensive, the four-week intensive, but that of course costs, not but, that of course costs some money. And then there is the membership club that I just started for the fitness part, the exercise part. You know what? I did not talk about exercising enough because a house doesn't exercise, right? But we need to exercise. We need to move. Tell me what we can compare that to in a house. I guess, we need to open and close doors and open and close windows and those kind of things. And so that the house inhales and exhales. But we need to exercise, and I have not talked about that sufficiently. So in our membership club, the Fitness Over 50 program that you can join every morning, 9 o'clock Eastern, on a Zoom call, recurring. So you just click yourself in. Is Mondays to Thursdays at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then there are individual consultations where we discuss what you most need. And that is, the membership is only $27 a month. So that is very affordable, and you can get your exercises in and meet the other people in the club and see how else I can be of assistance. And then there are individual consultations. You can go to johannasrawfoods.com and find such. And Mary clinked herself out. And you can, of course, connect with me at johannasrawfoods.com and contact, and we will connect with you and set up a discovery call, which is free, where we can hone in as to what you need. All right, so this has been the preparation for next week's mastermind on renovate your body. I hope that you want to come back and have your own questions. Hi, Mary. Welcome back, but I'm going to close here. Please feel free to connect with me if you want to know more. Want to find out how you can participate in any of my offerings. I also do a 12-month course where I teach you, it's a step-by-step process, again, how to be a coach yourself. That's a certificate course, and you get a certificate at the end if you complete the work required. Of course, that's the more academic approach to elevating your own self to a level of where you feel confident that you can share your knowledge that may be very specific with others and become that coach and guide for other people who might want to learn from you. All right. This has been the mastermind on Renovate Your Body. And part 2, where I hope that you will ask all your questions, will be available next Sunday on September 22nd. And I hope to see you there and many more. All right, this has been the Mastermind. I'm Professor Johanna Sophia. You find me on YouTube. My channel is, just Google Prof. Johanna Sophia for Professor Johanna Sophia. And you will probably find the YouTube channel, the Facebook, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, the all those pages, the TikTok, which I guess Google doesn't show you readily, right? But I am on TikTok, actually quite active on TikTok. And and you will find interviews where I'm interviewing people or where I'm being interviewed, etc. So johannesrawfoods.com, however, is the main website, and you can connect with me on the contact page there. And I look forward to talking with you. Ciao.